is Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditzies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. Miss Liz in the house. That's right. And I have Liisa Kovala. She just told me how to say it. And look at me. I'm like, right? But welcome, everybody, to Tea Time. It is the evening tea time show. And Miss Liz is honored to have you all here tuning in and checking this out. Tonight, I have a Northern Ontario girl in the house. And you all know Miss Liz is from Northern Ontario. So we're going to spill some winter blues and winter fest and all of that good stuff, all the good winter stuff that the Northern Ontario offers us, along with some incredible storytelling tonight. But before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel, Spotify, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, all of those platforms. Give them a like, subscribe, follow, and share, and get these tea times out, because each tea time does make a difference, not only for my guests, but for my listeners as well, because each tea, I guarantee, will resonate with one of you guys out there. So let's get started with a disclaimer and then a bio, an intro, and then we're going to get Liisa in here. We're going to spill some tea, and tonight her tea is, let me see if I can get it out without a tongue twister right now, conventionally evolution and renaissance. I think I got it out straight in this time. This afternoon, my tongue was a little too tongue twisting, but we're going to get it out there. We're going to spill some tea and we're going to have some fun tonight. So let's get started with Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decisions and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Now let me give you a little bit on Liisa. Well, tonight I pour a conversation about memory, mother lines, and the courage it takes to write what hurts and heals. We welcome Liisa Kovala, an author whose work threads history into the present, exploring identity, resilience, and the stories families carry for a lifetime. Through meticulous research and a compassionate pen, Liisa turns lived experience into literature that invites us to remember, reckon, and rise. Let's get Liisa in here and serve a strong tea together. And my tongue needs to do some resting.
Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, Liisa. And you even told me before we started how to pronounce it, and I was just like, I butchered that. So how do you pronounce your last name, Liisa?
It's Kovala. It's just the emphasis at the beginning syllable. So Kovala.
Kovala. See, I
Yeah,
thought
perfect.
that was it. Yeah, I need a little assistance sometimes from my guest. Miss
I
Liz
love
needs
it.
help, guys. So Lisa,
Amazing.
let's get started with how I open all the tea times. Who was Lisa as a little girl, and who's Lisa now?
Oh my goodness, I love that question so much. I think as a little girl, I was extremely quiet and shy, and I read a ton. I just dove into books. I loved drawing and creating stories from my pictures. A lot of girls from the past, like I look back now at the drawings I did, and I think, oh, actually, I was writing historical fiction when I was a kid. I just didn't know I was doing that. And, I think I just was doing a lot of writing as a teenager. And then as people do, they go off to university and work and all of the things. And a lot of those passions I had for writing, I was an English teacher. So I sort of dove into that aspect of teaching others and reading with them and that kind of thing. But I left my own writing aside for a long time. So now as an adult, I've really embraced those passions I had as a kid and the skill develop those skills and just loving being at this stage in my life when I can just be a writer and help other people write their stories as a book coach. It's just been amazing.
See, I love asking that question to all my guests because the little child is what the big child usually ends up with, right? Or the opposite.
Yes,
Like when you're being told as a little kid, be quiet. We don't be seen but not heard, right?
yes.
And then we become speakers or we become writers. And, we kind of know what we want to do before we're an adult as a child, you know,
I
playing
think
school,
so.
playing school. Did you ever play school growing up?
100%. And if I think back to the kinds of play we had as a group of kids in the neighborhood, one of the things I used to do was I would make them do plays, which I would basically write and made them act in. I'm not sure how much they loved it, but they did it. And then we'd have like games where we would play characters and they were ongoing storylines. So each person had their own character and we would the story would evolve over days and days and days. So it was a form of storytelling that was really interesting because there was a lot of kids involved in telling the story and it would kind of change and adapt every day. So the storytelling was always there. I just didn't know that. I mean, I knew I wanted to write, but I think also I was afraid of that being a career choice in my early 20s because I felt like what everyone says, oh, that's a great hobby, but it's not necessarily, how are you going to make a living? And they're not exactly wrong about that, but I think I was so dissuaded from even pursuing it that I didn't really even attempt it. So I admire young folks who start pursuing their writing dreams early because, it's like just go for it. Even if you're doing other work, even if you're doing other things to sustain you, I think keep the writing going for sure.
Well, and who knew our hobbies could turn into our life careers, right?
Exactly. It didn't seem like an option at the time. It wasn't something I imagined as possible. And I think as a young person, I was so concerned about um, taking care of myself and having a career that would, sustain me. And I don't regret becoming a teacher. It was really a great career. It really was. I loved it. I loved my students. I loved teaching about literature. I loved working with students on their writing. So it was still using some of that creative skills I wanted to display, but it just in a different capacity. And then I started teaching writer's craft to students, and that's when I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like I love literature, but like when I started teaching writer's craft, it kind of fell into place that, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I did end up leaving teaching in 2022, 5 years before I was supposed to retire. So I left a little early, but no regrets because now I'm doing exactly what I want to do.
We just had a question that came in. What is writer's crafts?
Writer's Craft is a course that often grade 12s take as like they'll do their regular English class, but it's an optional class, and we focus on the craft of writing. So we teach them about like how to tell stories, and we did playwriting and we did poetry, but it was not so much the reading of literature that you do in English class, but it was focused on your own writing. And students who came to that class loved it, right? Because they were like me as kids. They loved to write and they wanted to express themselves. And here was a place where they were surrounded by other students who loved to do that too. So I really loved writer's craft, and those students, I still think about them. They're just amazing. And a lot of them have gone on to pursue really creative careers. So that's gratifying.
It's always nice to hear those stories, right? The kids that you taught, and then they come back.
Yes.
You know, I wrote my books. I think it's 3 years now, and I got my grade 7 teacher who gave me my first writing award to write my foreword in my book.
Amazing.
And she actually taught 4 generations in our family. So my grandma, my mom, me, and my children.
So lovely, isn't it? To have that connection with your former teacher, and they love it too. Like the teachers love to see where their students have landed and how they've, their family and their children and their grandchildren. Like it's just lovely when you have those connections with teachers. I have a couple in my life too that I sort of keep in contact with a bit, and it's just something really special.
So you said you're from Sudbury, which is only a couple hours from my hometown, Hearst, right?
Yes, yeah, Northern girls.
So are you still in Sudbury?
I'm still in Sudbury. So I grew up here. I went to Laurentian for a year, and then I went to Ottawa U. And then I actually, for my first teaching job, I went to New Zealand for a year and a half. Yeah. So I was newly married, and that was my first teaching job. So we lived in New Zealand. We taught at the same school, my husband and I. And then we came back to Ontario, but we worked he worked at Perth Public School, I think it was called, and I worked in Almont. So we were there for a few years. I would say all told, we were probably gone away in various places for 10 years. And then when we had our daughter, we thought, well, this is probably a good time to go back north where the grandparents were. And so we've been here ever since. My daughter just turned 25. So we've been back in Sudbury for quite a while now.
So do you guys got snow yet?
We don't. It's a really unusual November because sometimes at this stage we've had some snowfalls, maybe snow and melt, but we've had such beautiful weather. I work from home, and I have a puppy called Emmy, and she's a golden doodle. And I have the door open for her to go in and out. All month I've had it open, which is really unusual, as you know, for the north, because it can get really cold.
We're used to snow all year round.
Yeah, sometimes
people say
like
summer.
that.
We're like, what? When did that happen?
No, exactly. So I have to say it's been this really beautiful fall. The leaves have been incredible. The sun has been great. We've had some rain, of course. But I was talking to the neighbor when I was walking the dog earlier, and he said, "Oh, no, it's coming. That snow is coming." I'm like, "Don't remind me. I'm not ready." But it happens, and then we just embrace it, right? Because we're Northerners. It's all good. We can do this.
Right? We're those Tim Horton girls. Hold our cup.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Double.
Right? The storm comes, everybody's like, all those crazy drivers are all like tense, and we're just like, here, hold our cup. Like, let's
we're good. It's true. We got this.
We get it. We're Northern girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Lisa, I want to talk about your book. So I'm going to pull up your book, and that if you want to describe for the audio listeners what the cover looks like and all of that good stuff, and how you got the title and the cover and the story that's inside of it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about that book tonight.
Sure. Yeah. So this is my latest historical novel. It's actually my second historical novel. My first book was creative nonfiction called Surviving Stutthof. And then I wrote Sisters Went to War. So this is the third book. It's called Like Water for Weary Souls. I love the cover designer, Mark Harris, created a landscape with trees that are like dusted in snow, and there's a winding river through the center of it, sort of an open creek or river, and there's a kind of snowfall around it. And then just above the word souls, we have a crow that features in the story. So I loved what he did with the cover because I felt like it really gave that northern feel, like it really represented the north. Where the story is set. And the title is actually from Proverbs. And it is the full quote. I actually have it here. As cold water for a weary soul, so is good news from far country. And I love that idea because water plays a significant role for the women in this story, the family, like everybody, but the women in particular. And the mother of the main character is Essie, and her sister Hannah is found dead in Nolan Creek, which is in Sudbury, in the Donovan neighborhood, if anyone's familiar with Sudbury at all. And this is the 1930s. It's the Depression. And the mother kind of thinks of good news as being like water for weary souls. But the sister thinks, no, it's not really not. It's that it's hope that keeps us going. That's what we need. And the father thinks it's sisu, which is a Finnish concept about courage, determination, grit. And so each of them have sort of a different idea of what is needed. And I kind of think of all the characters as being weary souls because we are in the Depression. People are struggling. People are just trying to find a way to continue on, and they have dreams of a better life for themselves. And when Hannah is found dead, Essie knows for a fact, the police say it's an accident. She says it is not an accident. I know my sister, she would never have crossed the creek when the ice was unstable in the spring. They just had a winter like freeze thaw cycle, and she knows it's dangerous. And they had lost a younger sister to a river and water previously. So Essie's determined to find out what happened to her sister Hannah. And that's what the story is about, her going through this process of figuring out what happened to her sister. And in the meantime, learning more about herself and her trying to mend her relationship with her mother, who sort of blames her for the youngest sister's death. And so that complex relationships between family members and sisters, even because Hannah kept some of what she was doing private, and she was holding secrets. And as she goes along, Essie learns about some of those secrets and what really happened. So yeah, it was really fun to dip into the historical side, but also embed that mystery as well.
Well, we had some questions that came in for you, Liisa, that I want to get out to you.
Sure.
So the first one is, what experience first told you this story has to be written, even if it's hard?
I love that question so much. So I love historical fiction. I love writing about Finnish immigrant women, particularly because I'm Finnish Canadian, and I love the idea of learning more about different historical events. So I'm always kind of digging into those things. And I was reading a book called Defiant Sisters. It's called A Social History of Finnish Immigrant Women in Canada by Vatwu Lindström. So she's a researcher. She's not with us anymore, but she worked at University of Toronto. And she wrote a book all about Finnish immigrant women through like in Canada. And I got to the section of the 1930s, and she was talking about Sudbury in particular. And of course, light bulbs were coming up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to write about women in like my own hometown during this really difficult time. What was it like for them? How did they survive? What kinds of roles did they play in the society? What kind of struggles did they have? So that was one thing, is that whole historical part. And then the other part of me was like, I kind of want to write a mystery. Like I kind of want to write something that's like, you know, you kind of have to read and figure out what's going on. And there's different people that are suspects, but you're not sure. And that was a challenge. So I wanted to do that. So it's not, I wouldn't call this a typical, you know, murder mystery. It's more of historical mystery. So it's a little bit unconventional, but it does have that kind of drive forward as she tries to figure out what's going on. And the third thing that really impacted me was, so I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but in the 30s, Finnish, Canadian, and Americans went to the Soviet Union to create a society called Karelia. And Karelia was meant to be this Finnish utopian society. They were going to have this like new start, and it was all going to be better, and they would be able to, I don't know, educate their children in Finnish. And it was like this kind of like drive to send these people over there just to create this society. Well, you know how these things go. They don't go well at all, right? And eventually people started to disappear. and some were sent to gulags. Some people came back to Canada and the States because they realized that the writing was on the wall, that this isn't going to be good. And others gave up their passports and stayed. And, so it was not a good scenario. So I have one of my characters who decides life in Canada is really tough. He's come from Finland. He's here now, but he sees the dream is to go to this socialist utopian society. And then as the letters keep coming, his fiance realizes, oh, it's not what he thought it was. And they're positive at first. And then over time, she realizes something's wrong. So I was kind of fascinated by these little snippets of historical facts I learned. And that's what drove me to go, I got to write this.
And now you just gave me homework because now I'm going to go digging. I want to know more about the 1930s and when that happened. Growing up in a northern town, we had a lot of Finnish people in Hearst as well. We had a family that ran the home hardware store. For God's sakes, I can't remember their last name, but the whole family ran the store. Like in Sudbury, did you find that there was a lot of Finnish people that had businesses as well?
100%. So I grew up I was born in 72. And so as I was growing up, there was a really strong Finnish community here. There still is. Probably, I would say Sudbury, Toronto, Thunder Bay, Vancouver have the biggest population of Finns, and they came here in different waves. So, the late 19th century, and then early in the 1900s, and then in the 50s when my dad came in 51, that was another wave. So we have this community. Maybe that's why I'm so fascinated, because I grew up in a community where I went to a Finnish church. I went to Finnish language classes. My neighbors were Finnish. My parents spoke Finnish. All our friends' parents spoke Finnish. Like, I didn't quite understand that not everyone was Finnish until I went to school. Like, I didn't know. And, there's a Finnish bakery, Finnish halls. There was probably 3 or 4 Finnish halls actually at the time. Like, you could actually shop and conduct business in Sudbury at that time with almost only Finnish people if you wanted to. I had a friend whose mother only spoke Finnish and she didn't speak any English, or she claimed not to, but we did catch her watching soap operas. So I think she understood some. She did watch soap operas in English.
It was her way of not getting interrupted during the soap operas.
That's right. That's right. So she knew more than she was letting on, but she refused to speak English right up until the end. So, it was a really strong Finnish community. Now there's still a lot of Finns here, fewer of those kind of infrastructure things happening, but still community events. And, like for instance, I married a Canadian, but his parents were Australian. So there's a lot of that too, where so our kids are partly Australian, partly Finnish, all Canadian. And so they have a little bit of all the worlds, but they don't know really any Finnish except for the couple of words we've taught them. So, it doesn't take long, a generation or two, and the language is gone and some of the organizations are gone. And, but for a while there was a lot of Finnish businesses and activities happening here, and Finnish grand festivals. I used to do Finnish folk dancing.
Right? We have fun, right? Everyone said it was a hard time in the 70s. I think 70s, like I was born in 74. You were born in 72. We didn't have all of this technology to keep us busy.
Right.
We had to use our imagination. We played in junkyards and catch the fish in the creeks. And, we got dirty in the mud and made some mud piles and stuff like that. 100%. I wish that would come back a little bit.
I know. I remember that too. And just being sent outside, and you'd go find your friends and you'd come back late at night, like when the lights went on, it was like time to go home. Or sometimes you'd hear your mother calling down the street that it was supper time, so you'd head back. But it was just a different time. And I think you're right. We really had to use our imaginations and create our own type of play. And sports was involved in that too. But there was a lot of real play. And I think that might be missing for some young folks. There's a lot of creative young folks too out there, I'm sure, and maybe it's a different way that they play. I don't know.
I think as 70 grandparents need to bring back the old style, mud pies and, get dirty and just have fun. Take the water hose out, like
Yeah,
play a
exactly.
little bit, you know, make
For
the snow
sure.
angels and blow bubbles in the wintertime where they turn into ice balls. And
Yes. Right. I love that so much.
everybody's giving a kiss at New Year's. You know what Miss Liz is doing? I'm blowing bubbles outside. Like everybody, I want to see how cold it is. And down here where I am now, it's not as cold as it was back home.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's different.
You know that, Lisa. Like you go
Yeah.
outside and it was instant frostbite on the island,
Yes.
and you know you had scarves wrapped around your forehead. You look like a mummy.
Sure. Yeah. And the
Over
snow
here,
was
it's different.
right up there. It was just crazy. Yeah,
Right?
we're
King
just
of the
not getting
Castle,
along.
right? We played on the hills and we
Yes.
pushed people down. We went sliding. You know, it
So
was good
fun.
times.
It really
Um,
was. Yeah, best of
yeah,
times. I love that.
yeah. Well, let's get back into the book.
Yeah, sure.
So, when writing for family heritage and history, how do you balance truth, privacy, and narrative momentum?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I'm creating a setting that is as authentic as possible. So I do a ton of research. I read, and this is why historical fiction can take years, because you can go down these deep rabbit holes. And I so love history. So yeah, this Donovan neighborhood still exists here in Sudbury. I have family that live there. I used to go there for gymnastics at Sample Hall. Like, so you can still like wander those streets and see some of those old houses too, which is an amazing thing to be in a spot where you feel like you can see the history right in front of you. But luckily there's lots of great resources too, and people have done the research on the communities who have lived here. And same with the Corellian, the Corellia fever section. I read a lot of first person accounts because I wanted to know what real people who went there, what their experiences were. And that really helped me understand like the excitement they had going and the drive. Why would you go there? But then when you hear them, you're like, yeah, I want to go too. And then they get there and it's harder than, and there's food shortages, but that's okay. We're strong. We can keep going. And then it slowly starts to get worse. So firsthand accounts, if you can find them, are so good. But what I'm really writing is fiction. So when I'm focusing on the characters, Essie and Hannah are completely made up. Their story is completely made up. But um, I'm still going for the truth of what it could have been like for somebody living in that time period. And I want the truth of their emotions in terms of what happens to them and how they're struggling. And that's what's really relevant to us, I think, is, we're seeing that time period, but we're connecting to the characters and how they feel about things and the struggles they're having and the decisions they're making, and which is very modern, right? So we connect to them on a very personal level. So yeah, there are times when I can't find the exact answer for something I would love to know, and I can't find it, and no one knows, and I can't get any documents. And then so there is a little bit of creative license in there as well. But for the most part, I'm trying to be historically accurate, and then creating these like completely imaginary people who I find intriguing and who are living interesting lives and making sometimes not good decisions. As well.
You know what? Sometimes those decisions were wild adventures.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. And it allows us as readers to kind of viscerally see like not have to go through it ourselves, but see what it could feel like to actually have gone through it. So we don't, that's what I think is amazing about reading a novel, or even watching a television show can do it too. But when you're reading a novel, your brain actually thinks you're in it and doing it. Like it responds as though you're the one running away from the bear. So like, it's incredible. Like they've done brain research on that. And I'm like, that's so fascinating.
Lisa, have you ever read a book where you're like in the book and you're like, oh no, don't do that.
Don't go there.
Yes. You're like screaming at the book. It's like watching a movie, but you're in a book, right? And you're in it so good, and storyline is so good, and you're like, no, don't turn the page. And then you turn the page and you're like, oh no, she didn't. Or
he did it. I know. Those authors, they're always making bad things happen to their characters.
You're like, don't kill that one off. Like,
yeah, don't do that. Yes. But that's when the writing is good, right? It's because you really do want to see what's going to happen to that character, good or bad, and then see what decisions they make. And it drives the story forward. And so writers, yeah, we're guilty of that, right? Is trying to say, okay, it's not going to go well for this character, at least not at first. Maybe in the end it'll be okay, but we got to get there first. So
So
hang on for the
in your
ride.
book, do you give that? Like when you're telling a story, do you make people on the ends of their seats saying,
Yeah. Well, I
"No,
think
Lisa,
in
Lisa,
this,
no, not that."
yeah, I think sometimes, but because this, uh, I think it's more for me in this particular book, at least, about um that you keep guessing who did it. Like you think you know,
Oh,
and then you're like, oh, it's got to be that guy. Oh, it's got to be him. And then you learn something else about somebody else, and you're like, wait, oh, wait a minute. So, like, I'm trying to get you in Essie's head where she's trying to figure it out. And there's all these possible people that could be responsible for her sister's death. And she doesn't know, and the reader doesn't know, but you'll guess. And then you'll be wrong. And then you'll be like, oh, I know. And so that's what I hope is the reader is like in Essie's head with her as she's struggling to figure it out. And just when you think you know, there's something else, there's a little bit of a curveball, and you're like, oh, no, I think it's something else. So I love those kind of mysteries where um, you know, you might be right, you might be wrong, and then you're like, okay, but am I? And you're second guessing yourself. And so
it's almost like Madlock or
yeah.
Murder She Wrote, right? You think it's that person that took that person out, or you think
Yes.
that that's the criminal in the story, but then you're like,
Yeah.
no. And then the defense lawyer comes in and says, no, we have evidence that this person. Then you all like think, okay, well, now it's this woman. Like
That's right.
she took her husband out, and you know, like
Yes, I love that so much. Well, and I'm also writing right now, I'm writing a cozy mystery series. So although this has a mystery and it's historical fiction, the cozy mysteries are set in like a contemporary northern town and a quaint town with lots of quirky characters. And so that's been really fun, is to like really lean into the mystery and kind of like you say, Murder She Wrote, that kind of feel where it's not really dark, but it's kind of fun. And but there's always a little murder mystery to solve. So that's been really fun.
And do you throw some romance into your story?
I have a little romance in both. I have both in the cozy mystery and in Like Water for Weary Souls. I like a little romance. You know, we're human beings. We can't.
Right? We all need a little bit of love.
We need a little bit of love. And you know, as independent as Essie is, and as capable as she is, you know, she is living in the 30s. She is constrained a little bit by the environment that she lives in, and it's, you know, male dominated society. And not everybody is helpful, but she meets somebody who is actually on her side. And it's really about solving the crime, but if, you know, you can see over time that there are some sparks.
You got to buy the book, guys. Like, you just got to go out and get the book. We
That's
can't
right.
give it all to you, right? We can't tell you.
I can't tell you what happens. No.
We'll just give you enough that you're like, oh, it's Murder She Wrote. Oh, it's it's a northern thriller. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so fun. Yeah, amazing.
So, the next question that I have for you is, what patterns did you notice passing through generations, and how did writing help you name or heal them?
Yeah. So with these particular characters, I have the family having moved from Finland to Canada when the girls are quite young. So, and the mother has evidently she has mental health issues, and she loses a child on the voyage across the sea. So this woman is she has had a lot of tragedies in her life, and she suffers, as I think a lot of women did, right? Like childbearing and birth have always been difficult, but especially in those times. And so I had her bring some of those issues to her life in Northern Ontario, and the daughters wanting something different for themselves, right? Like just that, as you know, as sometimes is the case with parents and children, they don't want to live on the farm. They don't want to have that life. They want to go to the city. They want to become independent. They want to find their own kind of work. You know, it's this kind of dream of something better. So that was part of it. And then the other thing I brought to it was the father has left Finland, where there has been a civil war and between the red communist Finns and the white Finns, and he just doesn't believe that that people should bring those old belief systems to the new country. He just wants that left. And yet here it is in Canada too, right? Like I know that even in Sudbury, we had red and white halls, and some families didn't attend certain places because, oh, that's communist and that's not communist. So a lot
we
of
had
that,
even back in the 70s, guys.
yes,
Like,
exactly. Yes, in the 70s. So it's one of those, and that came from the fact that my grandfather, the story goes, I don't 100% know exactly what happened because no one's left to be able to talk about it, but my mother's father was living on a farm in Simplä on the border between Finland and Russia. And when that civil war was happening, he and some friends, I guess his life was in danger because he wouldn't side with the Reds or the Whites. So they both wanted to kill him. So they were like whisked away in the middle of the night in a, in some kind of wagon or something with covered up. And he came to Canada and he refused to ever go back to Finland. And he's actually moved to Wanop with my grandmother, and my mother was raised in Wanop, which is the town that these girls are from. So I use sort of historical bits of information in the fiction, but I was kind of interested in that perspective, that you are trying to come to a new country and start again, and yet people are bringing those old hurts and political issues and social issues with you. So again, the girls are like, Dad, like old news, and what if we go to a dance where communists are, like, it doesn't matter, and so they're trying to move on, and he's like, no. So I have that kind of tension between the parents and the kids, and I think we all recognize that as being something that continues in its own way, with every generation, right? The next generation is like, we're trying to move on. And the old generation is like, there's problems and we need to be aware of them. So we don't always listen to each other so well.
And I think that each generation does that, right? Like, as parents, our children are like, Mom, Dad, that's enough. Like, we don't do that anymore. Like the new talk, we don't talk like that.
That's right.
It's going to keep changing, right? And the grandchildren are like, Grandma, like, that's old school news. And I think it's going to keep continuing on.
I think so too. And yet if we pause and listen, we have so much to learn from each other, right? Like if even with the grandparents, their wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and they've seen things in their lives that we have not seen. And so I feel like the communication piece is so important. But, when you're young, you don't really think about it that way. I think now as an older person, I'm like, that's so interesting to me, because I think that the tension between family members and generations and the past that they lived in another country and then coming to Canada and faced with a whole other set of issues, and not like being an immigrant is hard enough, especially if you don't have the language and you're trying, Finns weren't, at the time, it kind of like the Italian community coming into the US, weren't that welcome at first. Oh, as workers, yes, but not as citizens. And that took a while. So, it's interesting to look back and think, okay, well, that wasn't that long ago.
Right. And that's even happening in today's world, right? Where people are welcome as workers, but not as citizens.
Yeah. It's scary. Yeah. And you think we always think, oh, we can learn from the history, we can learn from the past, but do we? We're really slow learners, apparently.
Right? We're in 2025, guys. Come on, like, wake up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we have to keep telling these stories and reminding each other, okay, we've been here before, we can do better. We can make different choices.
Yeah. So Liisa, where do you draw the line between your life story and the character story when you're writing?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's so fun to create new characters so that they can be completely different from you, or take parts of you that you want to express and embed them in a character. But I would say all my fictional characters are really that. However, I do draw my poor family. I do draw on like my mother's experiences as a kid and wound up living on a farm. And she was born in 33. So she was, during the Depression, she remembers living there and what it was like. So she'd tell me stories. And so I 100% use those stories for my fiction. So it's less about embedding yourself as a person and more about like picking things that happened and letting these new fictional characters experience them. Like, what is it like for Essie to be living on that farm that in my head is my parents, like my mother's farm where she grew up. And I've been there, I've seen it. So even when I was describing it, it was the farm that my mother grew up on, but I just took out my family and threw in these fictional characters and said, okay,
I was saying, you.
Yeah, you're gone, you're in. And then they can experience life there in their own way, because my mother is the most lovely person. She is nothing like Essie's mother. Although I have so much sympathy for Essie's mother. She has lost a lot and she has mental health issues and she's struggling. So I have so much sympathy for her, but she in no way reflects my mom or myself or anybody else. It's like I'm kind of looking at her she's her own person. And these characters become really real for me, like they're real because I guess I spend a lot of time with them. So.
Right. Well, the writer it's just the words on the paper and the characters, right, that you spend so much time with.
You really do.
That you do get a bond with them.
Yeah, 100%. You do. And I remember a long time ago, I was working with an author called Gail Anderson Dargotts. You might be familiar with her. She's kind of a renowned Canadian author, and she was mentoring me and so lovely. And I remember her saying to me, Liisa, you can't protect your characters. You can't protect them. You have to let them live, and bad things are going to happen to them. And I was like, okay, okay. Because I just, you kind of brought them to the brink of something bad happening, and then you pull away from that because you don't want them to get harmed. But then she's like, no, they need to go through the thing. They need to have the bad things happen. And I'm like, okay. So now I let my characters experience the bad things. But it's not that I don't feel for them, but they have to, like, that's part of their journey to, see the realities of the world, and that it's not as perfect as they'd like it to be. Because it's not. We live in the real world, right? We experience these things. So yeah, it doesn't mean it's all bad. There's good too. There's love and kindness and lightness as well, but they have to experience all the things.
Right. And that's what I mean when we're telling a story, when we're really in it, right? We're like, when we're turning those pages and we're like, no, don't do that. Even as a writer, we do that with rough drafts, right? We're just like, and then that part doesn't even make it into the book, but you've gone through all that heartache of that person,
Yes. Do you find, I have to ask you a question about that, because do you find that as a writer, sometimes you get to that scene that you have to write and it's going to be really hard, your character is going to struggle? Do you ever like hesitate about writing it, or say, oh, I'll write that later? Or like sometimes I'm just like, oh, I just can't write that today, it's too much.
I just write. I'm just a sloppy writer. Like I just write it out, and then I'm like, that has to make it. That has to make it. If that doesn't make it, I'm going to be heartbroken. But then when you get into the editor, you send it into an editor and they're like, no, this is a little bit too much, or we can shrink it and we can put these words in to give the readers the same ideal of what you're trying to say. But you're so focused on your words, right? And your way of saying it, that you're like, no, I want that part in there. You start to butt heads, right? And you're like, no, like, have you ever been in that situation?
Yeah, I think I have. And sometimes it's that you've created a scene or a moment, or the language is just so beautiful and you've spent a lot of time on it and it's just how you want it. And then somebody else is like, I don't really think so. and then
you're all heartbroken. You're like, really?
Yeah, really?
So hard on that part.
I really loved it. But you know what? A really good editor, if you have a good editor, they're almost always right. Like, because we're so close to the work. We
That's
just
what it
don't
is.
see it. We're so close, and we loved that. So I always recommend to writers, just take that scene out or whatever it is, move it aside, and then it's not gone. If you decide later, no, 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 I actually do want that. But if you read it again and realize, oh, I don't actually need that, and the book is stronger without it, then the editor was probably right. And then you can use that scene for something else. It's not gone.
It
So
could be a
I
second
don't want to
book
just
or a third book.
completely delete it because,
I
you
can
never know.
put them in a little shoebox, and then it's there for the second or third book or fourth
Yes.
book, right?
That's right. Yeah, for sure. In fact, I had during my writing Sissy's Winter War, I had a scene that opened the book, and I thought it was quite beautiful. And it was like the woman had it is sort of set in the Winter War between Finland and Russia in 1939, but also Northern Ontario in 1980. And the woman has early onset Alzheimer's, and she's in the woods wandering and like a path that she knows very well. And then she gets very confused. So it's the first sign that there's something wrong. And I had that in this book for ages. And then I took it out because I thought, oh, I don't really need it. I think it's too self-indulgent. I'm going to take it out. And I was working with my editor, and he said, you know, it was at the final stages before it goes to publication. And he said, I think if you had a scene kind of like this at the beginning, and I'm like, Matthew, I have that scene. I have it saved. It was part of my book the whole time. And so I just sent it to him. He's like, yep, that's the one. So my first instincts about that scene being there were right. And I second guessed myself by taking it out. And I needed him to say, no, 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 it needs a scene just like that. So you never know, right? Like you can even talk yourself into or out of something. It needs, having a good editor. They have, they're more impartial. They haven't spent as much time with the book. They see it from a different perspective. So, yeah, I think they're good editors. Amazing, amazing people. They've got the skills.
Right? Well, we have a question here that I want to get out to. When someone finishes your book, what do you want them to do differently in their families or communities?
Oh, I love that question. So when it comes to this particular book, Sisters Winter War, I think there's a couple of things I'd love people to think about. So one is forgiveness in lots of ways, right? Families can be sort of hurtful to one another in small ways and in bigger ways, and maybe not intentionally. But when the big things happen in our lives, that's when we realize that those smaller hurts are maybe so unimportant, right? Like when we lose somebody, when there's grief involved, when your family has gone through those things. So I think that's one of the things I'd love people to think about. And then the other thing is, like, Hannah keeps a lot of secrets from her sister, even though they've always told each other the truth and they've always been each other's best, closest allies. Um, so that idea of secret keeping and what do we really know about one another? Like we assume we do. Like when we know people, we think we know everything about them. And actually people keep things close to their chest a lot and don't always let us in. So I think we have to be conscious that there's always something else going on with other people. Like when we think everything is fine with them and maybe they're grumpy or whatever. We don't understand that there's some really dark, deep things happening in their life that they're maybe just not sharing for whatever reason. They're not ready, or it's so difficult that or they don't feel like anyone will listen. There's so many things. So I think that's important to remember, that everyone is going through something. And when you're going throughout your day and we kind of just assume everyone should be nice to us and everyone should be polite, and then they're not. And we're like, why did they do that? And I, pause and think about it for just a second. Like, we don't know what that person's going through in their day, and to just have a little bit of compassion for that. And usually if you do that, if you're compassionate with somebody else, you see that their attitude changes, right? Because somebody is being kind to them, even after they were, rude or whatever. So people have lots of secrets within themselves that they're carrying for whatever reason. And I think we have to be aware that, that's the human condition. We're all kind of, going through a lot of things, and we might be putting on a happy face, but we're struggling with health or family issues or right. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things we can think. I think we can treat each other more better. I think we can be kinder, gentler with each other, and understand that people, they're out there and they're suffering, and everyone just wants the best for themselves, for their family. They're trying to have a better life. And that is not easy in this world where I think everyone's struggling right now to some extent.
So we have a question here about authors talk. Do you do authors talks?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I often do. Well, I've been doing a lot of podcasts, especially for this book, but I do book clubs, and I've done presentations, and yeah, I do all the things, all the things authors do, which is always lovely to be with a group of people talking about books and talking about process and history, and yeah, it's fun. And I also do workshops for writers because as a book coach, I work with fiction and memoir writers. And so I have classes that I offer, and I work one-on-one with clients as well, helping them write their books. And I do workshops for other organizations so that, it's maybe just an afternoon or an evening Zoom, or sometimes in person, depending on what it is. But it's just a nice way to get help other people see what their stories are, and to give them the confidence to move forward with them. Because I think that's, everyone has a story to tell, and it's not easy to just start that process, right? So that's kind of part of my teaching, part of my writing career.
Well, we just had a question that came in for you, and it says a message from a reader that changed you and changed how you understood your own story.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, when I was writing, so I didn't say too much about my dad's book, but Surviving Studhof is the subtitle is My Father's Memories Behind the Death Gate. So he was a 16-year-old Finnish merchant marine sailor in Finland. He was too young to be in the army with his brothers fighting the Winter War and the Continuation War. So he was on a merchant marine ship, and that ship they were all arrested. Actually, 4 ships were arrested. 90 Finnish sailors were sent to Studhof concentration camp in Poland, which was the first concentration camp built outside of Germany, and the last one to be liberated. And it was very notoriously brutal. My dad survived, obviously, because I wouldn't be here. So at 84, he told me his story, and I wrote that book. So I got a lot of emails after writing that book, and a lot of people coming to me. And it was so moving, because when we first wrote it, I thought, this is a story I need to tell for my children and myself and my brothers, because we knew parts of his story, but not the whole thing, because he didn't really talk about it. So the process was trying to understand what really happened from his point of view. And of course, I did research to, make sure we got all the facts straight in terms of dates and all of that. So I got all these emails from readers, and they were so moving. Like, they would bring me to tears, because they could connect to their own father or grandfather who never talked about what happened to them in the war, that they wish they'd talked to their family member about their experiences, but never did, and now it's too late. That my father also was in such and such a concentration camp, and this is what happened to him. Like, the stories poured in, and it just, like, it still gives me chills, because writing that book was kind of a selfish thing. I wanted to have it for me, and I wanted it for my children. And I didn't understand that. Like, slowly I started to understand that, oh, family members want it. Oh, some friends of his want it. Oh, the community wants it. And it started to grow. And then I understood that, oh, this is one more story amidst, millions of stories that show what it was like for these individuals. And it's not that long ago. We're talking about my dad, not my grandfather or great grandfather. It was, it's in our lifetime. And all these emails reminded me how important stories are, and why it's so important to share them. Because we could have, which we intended to do, was just go to the Staples and print it off and maybe bind it and give it out. Like, that was the initial. And then eventually it's like, well, more people want it. Okay, well, we'll self-publish it, which I did. And then a publisher picked it up, and they published it traditionally. So it kind of had lots of iterations, but it's those emails, those folks who reached out that moved me so much and really made me understand the power of books. I mean, I knew the power of books for me myself as a reader, but from the writer standpoint, that was incredibly powerful. And I was so grateful for everyone who reached out. It was lovely.
And that's what we need to do is get these stories out, right? And that's what that's my goal on Tea Time, is to get stories out, stories that nobody even knows exist.
Ah,
Have
incredible.
people come to the table and share your story that other people can relate to.
Yeah.
Like how many listeners tonight are listening and saying, you know what, thank you, Liisa, for that story of your dad, or thank you for that story of the
Like water souls. Yeah.
right? Like you just never know who's listening and who is saying thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
It's true.
And that's what Tea Time is all about, right? It's sharing real life tea, the strength in our tea, how we serve it and how we bring it to the table, and why we become writers, or why we become teachers or authors or directors or animators, or it has to do with our story. It's part of the story within us.
I love that. I love that.
We didn't even get into your tea because we got into so many northern stuff. But you know what? I think your tea came through with us having this open conversation.
I think so too. I think so too. Yeah, for sure. I really love what you're doing here and having these great conversations with folks and sharing the stories and our personal journeys, our personal stories as well. And in addition to the things that we write. And I think those are powerful, right? Like when I'm thinking about myself as like moving beyond my conventional life as a teacher and, trying to do things that are outside of what I thought I would do as a kid. Like you mentioned that at the beginning, as a kid, I'm pushing the boundaries of what I thought I could do. And that's letting me become somebody different, like evolve and become who I'm meant to be. And, I think that's, what you're doing here is helping everyone see there are so many options and choices and ways to be inspired and go after your goals.
Well, we just plant seeds of tea. That's all I do.
Love it. I love
you
that.
guys do the watering. You guys, you guys bless me, and you guys educate me as well, because I go on a hunt after each tea time because you guys have taught me something. And now I'm going to go into the 1930s.
Yes.
I can't even talk. 1930s and do research. There's just always something to learn from somebody else.
Yes.
If you open your mind to learning and growing together.
Wow.
And that's what tea time is all about.
Love it.
Liisa, what kind of message do you want to leave to all the readers and writers out there tonight, even the young writers that are out there? Because I really want to work with the young kids. I want them to open their minds, the imagination, bring it back, right?
Yeah.
Open it up.
Bring it back. Yeah, I'm going to totally agree with you there. I think one of the things that I love to tell young people is, and they hear it all the time, and I think we get mixed messages from society, but we really find the thing that you're passionate about doing. And if you're not sure what that is, explore, right? Explore creativity, explore all kinds of things, try things, take risks. Something will just spark in you. You don't know what that is maybe. And if you do, if you're a writer, for instance, if you're a young person, you're a writer, just keep pursuing it. And for older folks, it is never too late. Right? If you have been doing other things in your life, working, raising a family, doing all the things, there's still time to pursue the things you love to do. So if you want to write that book, go write that book. You can, there's lots of first-time authors who are, well into their 70s and 80s. It's all good. Do what you want to do, and just don't let anyone say you can't do it. You can learn anything you want, and just go for it.
Absolutely. And there's no age limit. If you want to start a business, want to write a book, want to join a dance class, there's no age limit. We got to stop putting limits on stuff and just have some fun. Bring imagination back, because we need it. Like, I like to hear these stories and have little kids sit around a little table of tea and just tell me what the dragons and the fairies and the trolls and grandmas and grandpas, come thumping in, like do, like, let's just get the stories out there again. Let's have some fun.
Absolutely. I love that so much.
I had an amazing time with you, Lisa. I could talk with you all night long. Let's stay connected. Let's get some of those little northern stories out there. We just never
Yeah,
know where tea time's gonna go. Right? We might open
that's
up
right.
a northern telling story time. I don't know.
Love that.
We'll get
Yes,
it out there. Um,
that's
but I
so
really want
great.
to just thank you, and I want to thank all the listeners and viewers out there. I could not do this without all of you guys. It takes a team, and the tea and me makes a team. So let's just keep making good teamwork and getting the stories out there. Um, as our cups empty, Lisa reminds us that storytelling is both a bridge and a mirror, bridging us to those who came before and mirroring the truths we're finally brave enough to say. Her work calls us to preserve the stories that shape us, to speak gently about hard things, and to pass on a legacy of courage, one page at a time. When we write the past with honesty, we gift the future with hope. Until we meet again, keep the stories alive with writing, sharing, and making a difference. Your stories matter. Let's do this together. And I'll see everybody on Thursday with some more tea time, and we'll do this all over again.